Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Bogman, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to tell you why I want to do this so bad. I'm really excited to tell you why I believe it'll help people so much. I'm going to start my presentation off by talking about those things, and then I'm going to give you a portion of my official presentation. The reason why I couldn't give you my actual presentation today is because it was too long for your meeting. But after I give you a portion that I think best will illustrate why I want to do this so bad and kind of why I think it'll help so much, I'm going to give you kind of the baseline knowledge I have. I just finished my freshman year of college, so I don't have a lot of education on this topic, but I'll give you, the 2 classes that I've taken, as well as some of the resources that I've used to kind of design this presentation that gives people a better understanding of how serious these problems are as far as mental health and education are concerned, substance abuse are concerned. Before I start though, I do this kind of with my official presentation as well, because it's going to be to an audience that isn't used to these 2 topics. So my presentations, both of them, they're very opinionated, and so you're probably not going to agree with every single thing that I say, but I definitely hope you agree with some things, and I sure hope you agree with at least one thing, but you're probably not going to agree with everything that I say. A few factors that I know play into that is I'm 19 years old. I'm a young buck, right? That's going to be hard for some people to get over that hump to where they're actually going to have to listen to what I have to say, as well as, to tie into that education thing. I don't have a full degree yet for psychology or substance use and stuff like that. So that's, again, going to be hard for people to get over that hump to where they're actually going to want to take me seriously. But yes, I designed my presentation opinionated partially because of those reasons, but I also designed my presentation because it's supposed to be positive. It's supposed to bring light into 2 groups of people that in our society, I think, still today is very negatively portrayed as it just not accepted in our society. And so keeping that in mind, at least for the part where I'm talking, I would appreciate it if you guys could keep an open mind, because at least until the end where we do comments and questions and things like that after I give you the baseline knowledge thing. All right, now I'm going to move on to the more important thing. Why do I want to do this so bad? I'll give you the broad version and I'm going to break it down for you. I simply want to help people. I want people to understand that either other people or themselves are great and that they have value in their life. Let me break it down for you. I can help a person, but I can't give a person happiness. I can't take that addiction out of their brain. I can't take those triggers away from them. I can't bring the relapse rate all the way down to 0 to where they only have to go to treatment 1 time or not at all. I can't trade my life for somebody else's. I think everybody in this room would pick one of those 3 options if they could. 1, because it's easy, and 2, my brother has these problems, and I would trade my life for his. I would give him my happiness any day of the week just to see him happy one day. And so those kinds of things are, what I would do. I mean, I can't, excuse me. But I can't do those things, and since I can't do those things, I'm going to do the one thing that I can do even at 19 years old. I'm going to try and reduce the stigma the best I can. If I can't give a good-hearted person with a mental health problem happiness, I'm going to give them the acceptance of having a mental health problem in the first place, and I'm going to treat it like it's an actual problem and not an excuse. If I can't take a person's addiction away from them, I'm going to take away the shame of having one in the first place. I want people who have never been around these kinds of things to understand that these are real problems, like they're actual medical problems that people wake up with and struggle with every single day of their lives. And then that they can't just quit drinking alcohol, that they can't quit doing heroin, they can't quit doing meth, they can't quit doing crack, cocaine, right? That you can't give a mental health person $1 million and they never have to take an antidepressant ever again in their life. That they can't just basically wake up one day and life's all peachy and clean. I think everybody in here knows that life isn't sunshine and rainbows, right? I mean, you're all here for a reason to prevent it, and so, but to piggyback off that sunshine and rainbows thing, just because life isn't sunshine and rainbows, doesn't mean you can't attempt to make it sunshine and rainbows. And I want to do that by showing people how great people are. Because if you show somebody how great somebody is, and that their presence as a person is, even if it's just important to one person, it's more important to than that label that people label them as, or that mistake that people think defines them. And so, I apologize.
That's all right.
And then, oh yeah, and then we'll make a dent, and addiction will decrease, and mental health will increase, and so, or excuse me, health will increase, and so then maybe these, you'll see some help start to grow and pick up, because it's still not really accepted to get help or accepted by society to go get help for treatment for these things. And so, because I think we put so much shame on these two topics, that to me, I think we prevent people from even getting help in the first place. And so, the thing about that is I don't know why, but it just seems to me that it seems like less and less people, I mean, yeah, they're kind of getting better, but they tend to not want to get help very much because of those reasons. And I just want everybody to know that, like, you do have a right to, I don't only just want to reduce the stigma. I want people to, again, understand that these are real problems, but to even go further than that, I want people to understand that everybody's life matters enough to get help if need be, whether they have a problem or not, because, or whether it's just a regular situation or a normal, it's not even that, it doesn't even have a relation to these two topics. I want people to, everybody's life matters enough to get help, because everybody experiences sadness, but what most people say when they say that, they always try to motivate people by putting a negative spin on it. They always say, everybody experiences sadness, so suck it up kind of thing. Well, I want my presentation to do the exact opposite. I want people, yeah, everybody experiences sadness, so you do have a right to, go get help. You do have a right to express it. Obviously not dramatically, but you still have a right to do those things, because no matter what you're going through, you're still going through it. I mean, and I think my brother's story, I think his life, I think my presentation uniquely expresses this, because especially when it comes to these two topics, I think my brother's kind of the middleman. And what I mean by this, when you talk about a problem, you have one side of the spectrum where people who've never really been around a person with a mental health problem, or never been around a person with addiction, and the only experience they see is what they see on TV. And what they see on TV is, they see the gangs, the violence, the overdoses, the guns, the whatever, and that's like the extreme side of the spectrum that they see. So they don't associate it with a problem because they associate it with a crime. And then when you go to the extreme side of the spectrum, those people, I think when you grow up around everybody you know has a addiction, or everybody you know does drugs or is around drugs, I think they don't associate it with a problem either, because to me, I think they associate it with more like a culture or a lifestyle, in the sense that, okay, this is what my parents did, this is what my siblings do, this is what everybody does, so this is just the normality that I grew up with, or whatever. And then you have the middleman, which is, they came about it, obviously through the opioid epidemic is a good one. They came about it through their doctor prescribing pain medication, and then that's how most people get addicted to heroin, right? And so you came about it from some sort of reason, or they came in contact with it. They didn't grow up with it necessarily, but they also just, they know, or a family member knows it's somebody that has it. And I want to bring that middleman out, because those are the easiest ones associated with that it's an actual problem. And if you get these people to understand that these people, that this is a problem, then maybe these people will go get help. Yeah, they got money, financial situations, things like that, but maybe funds will go in and stuff like that, so then you can get help for these people and these people. The best examples I can give you for these two, this one's pretty easy, the fact that you've never been around it, but is, alcohol on the extreme side, right? Alcohol is so socially accepted in our society, and it always has been, that when it comes to an alcoholic, they either can't see themselves having a problem because everybody drinks, or everybody drinks alcohol, whether the amount they drink is 1 drink or 12 drinks, which is the alcoholic, but they still don't see it. It's so socially accepted that they can't see it as a problem. And like even our society doesn't see it as a problem, because for Pete's sakes, the bars on the weekdays they close at 2 in the morning. How many people do you know that's not an alcoholic that goes and stays at a bar till 2 in the morning on a weekday? Like really? Like there's nobody really thinks about that, in the sense that 2 in the morning is kind of an interesting time to be out, if you don't have a problem. The only people I can think of is an alcoholic or a college kid like me or something, just sneaking in or something like that. But that's kind of why I want to bring that out of here. And then the best example I can give you, where the middleman kind of doesn't see it as a problem, because they go, well, if these people don't have a problem, well, then I sure don't. I can give you the best example I can, which is my brother. When I told my brother that I was going to do this, I tell him his story, I was like, I'm pretty sure I told him, I said, your life is going to impact somebody. Your story is going to impact somebody by the way I tell it, because I could tell him through his great heart and his problems, and I could bring those together. But I told him that, this is what he told me. He said, I don't think it's going to work. And I kind of asked him, I said, well, why not? And he said, well, I don't think my life is hard enough I don't think my life is sad enough to impact somebody. So you're not confused, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to do this next portion where I'm going to talk about, almost like I'm having a conversation with my brother, and you guys are like, we're at the mall or something, you guys are watching, so it might be a little weird. But again, I thought to myself, why does that matter? This is a way to help people and give people the help they need, so then we can move forward as a society or as a community. And so when I was thinking, okay, Robin, you went all 4 years of high school without having any friends, and you went 7 hours a day, 365 days a year, and the only person you hang out with in your age range was me. And how that came about was from a mental medical issue called social anxiety disorder that most people have never even heard of. And that was the reason basically behind a 4-year isolation. My voice might go up, by the way. Behind a 4-year isolation. And then every day you wake up, you have to take a pill, because if you don't take that pill for a day, if you don't take that pill for a week, if you don't take that pill for probably a month, and definitely a year, you'll probably be dead, because the pain and the emptiness will be so bad that you'll want to commit suicide. But wait a second, it feels like I already lost you, because you had to go 800 miles away from me due to a meth addiction, because if you didn't, you would have went to prison and you would have overdosed and died. That doesn't sound like your life would impact somebody, when I know how great your heart is. Because it impacted the one person that wants to do this more than anybody in the world. It impacted me. He doesn't know what his life, what his story, what his presence as a person did for me. If it wasn't for him, man, if he wasn't in my life definitely now, and definitely maybe before, I guarantee you I would have an alcohol problem. We have the worst genetics, and 75% of my family have been addicted to drugs or alcohol before. If he wasn't in my life, I guarantee you, I should say with strong confidence, that my brother probably, I probably would have dropped out of college by now. My major is psychology. It has everything to do with him. There would be no major if it wasn't for him. And last but not least, hopefully one day I wouldn't be standing in front of tens, hundreds, maybe thousands, and a huge ballpark stretch of maybe a million, telling them how great people are just to help people. And so again, that doesn't sound like his life would impact somebody when I know how great his heart is. I'm going to show you how great his heart is through my portion. We took a trip. There's 2 pictures, but anyway, we took a trip to visit my, for the first time in my life, I took a trip with my brother alone. We took a trip to visit. First time visiting my biological half-sister, my half-sister and my oldest half-brother. And when we took this trip, man, it was coming off of, he just graduated high school, and right before his senior year of high school, it was probably one of the worst years of his life. He was contemplating suicide. And so, to get him the medicine he needed, and he got better over the summer, you know, he was a whole lot better. And we took this trip, and it was one of the greatest, it's the greatest trip I ever took in my entire life. We drove, you know, 11 hours in the car straight with my brother, probably the longest time straight I've ever spent with my brother. Drove 11 hours in the car. We were driving down the road, we'd crank the tunes, we'd be dancing in the car, lip singing to the cars right next to us like a bunch of morons. And when we got there about 7 o'clock at night, and my brother, you know, we got to my aunt's house, and we basically didn't really do anything. We just kind of ate, talked to her. I met her before, and went to bed, and then we woke up the next day, and I met these two people. I didn't even want to go on this trip. I didn't really want to meet my siblings. And the person that basically pushed me to do it was this guy. And I partially had to do with the fact that he's contemplating suicide. So I was like, yeah, do I really say no to him after a year of basically crap? And so, but I wouldn't have met, my aunt's not in there, but my aunt's one of them. She's the most positive people I've ever really met in my life. The only person in here that, other than me and her, these two have been addicted to drugs and alcohol, but she hasn't. So, but if you would have met him today, my oldest brother, you wouldn't even know, you know, that he had a problem. The same thing with my aunt. They're the most positive people I've ever met in my life. And so, we met him, and that was great, but that wasn't even the best part. The best part was when I got to see my brother, man. I got to see, basically this was a trip where I got to see for the first time in my life why people with mental health problems or addiction or, you know, or have substance use disorders are basically on this earth. It's because of their great hearts. My brother, I mentioned the social anxiety disorder. Let me give you one more example of it. I'm pretty sure this is a disorder, or this situation has to do with it. But when we go to a movie sometimes, there will be a line, and my brother will, I think, get kind of uncomfortable and stand outside the line and let people cut it in front of him. Or if there's no line, he'll do this circular thing where, almost like as if he's afraid to walk up like and buy a ticket, the most simplest thing you could do. And when we went on this trip, it was like a miracle because it's like he didn't have that. Their roommates came. I don't even think he met him before. And he walked up to him and he was giving them hugs, and it was like, what is this, you know, like, what are you doing? And he was hugging everybody. It just looked like it looked like he was cured of all of his mental health problems, and he didn't have the substance use disorder at the time, so it was just his mental health problems. But obviously he's not, or else I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. But it almost looked like he was cured, and that was part of the reason why it was one of the greatest trips I ever took in my life, because you just got such a great heart to walk up to people and give them a hug and having them not even know them at all. And I'll show you how great my brother's heart is in a moment, in a second. But that trip, again, it was almost like a miracle. We went on 2 trips of those. And again, those were the 2 greatest trips I ever took with my brother. I've been on a lot of trips with my brother, but hands down, I've never seen him this good, you know, this happy or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it was, but he looked better than anything. And the thing about it is one of these trips I remember going into my aunt's backyard, and I remember calling my mom, and I said to her, I remember calling her, and basically one of the reasons why I was calling her was because the trips were so great. I was calling her and I said, I think my brother has to move here out to Colorado because I basically said there's nothing here for him. And when I was doing that, I broke down kind of partially because I entertained the thought of my brother being 800 miles away from me, and I also just didn't really, I think I upset my parents because, you know, they still live here, and I was like, okay, this might upset them a little bit because they're like, well, we're still here, you know, kind of thing. But when I did that, and I was crying, the one person that was, that opened that sliding door, that saw me crying, was my brother. And the thing about it is, you know how most people, when you're upset or something, they always ask you what's wrong, what's wrong? This is why he's got such a great heart. He didn't even need to do that. He walked up, he went down, and he didn't say a single word to me. He was like, basically, I think he was thinking, man, this is my best friend, this is my brother, this is whatever. And he's upset right now. I don't know if he had empathy or sympathy, whatever he had, but he walked up to me and he just gave me a quick hug. He knows I don't really like hugs that much, but he gave me a quick hug, and he walked away like a champ, and it was the best hug I ever got in my time. I like, because that's just how great his heart is. The fact that he didn't even ask me what's wrong is why. And then let me give you one more. My mom's friend was diagnosed with cancer recently. She also lives in Colorado. And sometimes usually when we go to see my brother, we go to see her because they live so close. Well, we went to go see him, and when we went to see him, my brother doesn't see her that often, so he sees her about the same amount of time as we do. Well, when we went to give her a hug, he squeezed her almost tighter than, a little tighter than normal. And yeah, he could have accidentally squeezed her too tight, but I'm going to be optimistic about it and think to myself that he gave her that tight squeeze, almost to say, no, it's going to be okay that you got cancer. We're here for you, kind of thing. Those little moments are why I want to do this so bad, because people don't even understand how great they are, whether they're, you know, my brother's worked in lawn care, he's worked as a grocery store. He hasn't done anything like fantastic job-wise, but he's the greatest person in my life I'll ever meet. And so, that thing about that is, that's why I'm going to do it. Those little moments that people don't see are why I want to go up, stand up in front of people, and tell them about my brother. And because I wish there was more moments like that, though. That sheet that's sitting in front of you, how many of you guys flipped it over? Did any of you flip it over before I said that? That's the greatest representation of why. I mean, you've got people where they got a job application, and the first thing they put down on the job is what kind of charges you have. They don't even put, and then the ending one is, what's your strengths? Why don't they put your strengths first, and then you can see how great of a person you are before they even put that down. That's a perfect representation. Nobody flipped it over to see the backside, to see how great some of the things a lot of people are capable of that actually define them, compared to that situation that doesn't even define a person. That's pretty much the basic reason why I'm going to do this so bad. You know, I'm going to give you my, real quick, I'm going to give you kind of a couple classes.